Good morning or good evening, whatever the case may be. I'm Dave Street, and I'm going to be teaching a course for Dads Married to Doctors entitled Parenting is for the Brave at Heart. So that means that you're somebody who married a doctor, and you may have thought you knew what it was going to be like, or you had some expectations or preconceived notions. And then you got started as a medical family, and then you had kids anyway. All right. And what happened was that you got the job of taking care of just about everything, if not everything, including being the primary caregiver for your kids. And that includes doing most of the parenting. So I've been married for 37 years to an OBGYN. We have 4 kids. Their ages 25 to 33, 34 now. So I've got a lot to say. A lot to say. We lived in Dallas, Texas when my wife was in residency and had the first baby. We were 800 miles from our nearest relatives. And, being the doctor that she is, like most of your spouses are, 2 weeks after she had the baby, she went back to work. 10, 12, 14-hour days. I was left with a baby. So about a month after she had gone back to work, she came home, picked up the baby, took a whiff, and said, when was the last time you gave the baby a bath? And I said, a bath? Nobody said anything about baths. And we had a big laugh. That was about the moment that it hit me really hard that I really didn't know a lot about taking care of kids, including parenting. So the first thing that I want to tell you guys in the first lesson of this 4-part series is, number 1, you don't know it all. You don't know it all. So get a notebook. Here's my little notebook that I've been carrying around for 25 years with notes in it about how to parent. When it took me a few years to really come around to understand that I was going to have to really dig and research and get my act together if we were going to be successful in this way of doing things. So the way that I've put this curriculum together is to give everybody a chance to step back. I know that there's little things that go on every day in your life, and you want to know, how do I deal with a kid that won't sleep, or a kid that won't eat, or a teenager who does this, or a 9-year-old who does that. That's not really what this course is about. This is about more of a big picture approach to help get you in the right frame of mind and get you lined up so that the decisions that you make about things like that are going to be decisions that help to promote and fulfill the aims and objectives that you set for parenting. Now, 30-something years ago, really, there just were not very many dads staying at home raising kids. There just weren't. So there weren't a lot of resources. There weren't a lot of support groups. And, one of the things that we just had to come to understand as a family was that the kids just wanted to be home. I went to law school while my wife was in residency, and we thought we would be a 2-income family. And, we ended up moving back to Georgia, where both of our families are, and put the kids in a situation where they could be with their aunt and their cousins during the day, and we'd pick them up after work. And we did that for a while, and it just became real apparent that our kids wanted to be in our home. They wanted to be raised there. They wanted to be with a parent. And there's nothing wrong with, the family or the cousins or other kinds of caregiving situations. Um, Kids just want to be with their stuff and they want a parent. And it really didn't matter at that point. I don't think it matters now if it was the mom or the dad. So that was a big clue about a big step toward knowing how to parent. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about at the beginning of this parenting curriculum is about why guys don't really know anything about taking care of kids and parenting, and women seem to have written the book on it, all of them. So if you understand why there's such a big difference between how the male and the female minds work as it regards parenting and childcare, I think it'll go a long way toward helping you figure out how you can do the things that you need to do in order to be the best parent that you can. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the truth. Boys and girls grow up differently. They just do. I think they grew up a lot more differently when I was a kid growing up back in the 60s. But even you guys you're just in your 30s now, maybe your 40s, you still grew up differently. It was a physical, difference that creates the different, growing up experience. Even in sports, if you have girls in sports and boys in sports, there's just a difference between how they relate, how they experience, how they express themselves. And we need to talk about that. And you have to know up front, there's nothing judgmental about what I'm saying. There's not one better than the other. There's just a difference to help you understand that, women are wired a little differently. And so it gives them a better head start in the parenting and childcare area. But you can catch up and you can be great at it. Okay? You can be great at it. All right, first of all, let's talk about guys. All right. Guys are linear thinkers. Okay? Guys are linear thinkers. So what does that mean? Guys like to solve a problem, put it away, and move on to the next problem. That's a big reason why guys are generally really good at math, really good at science. You solve a problem, you move on. Think about guys that are engineers, guys that are, logical thinkers. That's, for the most part, and I'm just speaking very generally now, that's how guys think. If you've been at home taking care of all of the chores while your wife has been practicing medicine or in residency, you understand this. This is why guys get so frustrated about the kitchen and about the laundry. We think, because we think in a linear way, that once we've done the laundry's done. They shouldn't have to do the laundry again. And you know that as soon as you get one load done, there's another basket full of dirty clothes waiting to be washed. And it's so frustrating. While all my kids were growing up, it was just a chore that I did. First thing in the morning, I went through all the bedrooms, picked up all the dirty clothes, took them to the laundry room, and began the process of laundry for that day. It's just what you did. Most of the years that all my kids were home, I did more than 1,000 loads of laundry a year. And how do I know that? Because I'm a guy and I counted. I kept track on a piece of paper that was inside the door of the cabinet above the dryer. I bet there are some of you who are doing the same thing. because you can't believe how many loads of clothes you have to do for your family. But it's frustrating for us because we think, okay, we took care of this chore yesterday. Why am I doing it again? The kitchen's the same way. You've washed dishes. All right. You've cleaned up everything. But if you have kids at home, you don't even get turned around and there's another spoon and another cup and another plate, and they've pulled chips out and they've pulled something else out and they've made a mess, and you just can't get it clean and keep it clean. It's in a constant state of this circular clean mess, clean mess, clean mess. And we get really frustrated. Okay, we get really frustrated by it. Let me tell you another little thing that represents how guys think. And we think in a linear way. This is how we think. We get married. We told our wives that we loved them. And we don't think that we need to tell them again unless we change our mind. Because that's how we think. All right, I did that, solved that, move on, let's deal with something else. Women are not like that. Okay, so men are very linear in their thinking. How do women think? Women can do 10 things at one time and do them all well because they don't think in a linear way. They think more in a scattered spatial way. I've got all these things in my life. It's, we think of it like you're juggling balls or something. They're good at it. They've always been good at it. The other thing, the follow-up to the guy who tells his wife that he loves her when they get married and doesn't feel like he needs to tell her again. Women need to hear that they are loved every day. Okay? So you may not need to hear it, all right, because you're a linear thinker. But the way they think, they need to hear that every day. Now, why is that difference important in the context of what we're talking about? Because it means that because women can juggle so many balls, they can think about so many different things at the same time. They don't mind that the kitchen has to be constantly cleaned. They don't mind that there's always dirty laundry. They don't mind that they have to constantly pick up toys and papers, laptops, cell phones, whatever, just scattered all over the house. It just doesn't, for the most part now, remember I'm speaking generally, that doesn't bother them. And it's because of the way that they think, all right? The other thing that the women doctors have a very good grasp on is the ability to let go of things. Now, why is that important? Because if you live with a doctor long enough, you know that they have tunnel vision. And it's just part of the training. It's from medical school, it's from residency. They get very focused on what they're doing. And in order to maintain that focus, they've learned to let go of things that just aren't high enough priority. And those are things like laundry, kitchen, house. Okay? They can just let go. And that's a big deal. Okay, let's talk about another characteristic that speaks to the differences between boys and girls, men and women. All right, you remember when you were a kid? I mean, if you've got a house full of kids right now and you've got boys and girls, you know this is so true. Boys are very action-oriented. They are in constant motion. They would rather run and jump and fall and get up and hit and push and grab than they would sit quietly and play a game or play quietly with a toy. Okay? Now, the thing that you have to understand about that is that little boys, they're like that, and in their heads, they think everybody is like them. They don't understand at that point that girls are not like that and that girls are different, okay? When my kids were little, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. When they were little, I was constantly watching as they played, and the boys treated the girls like they were boys. And their expectation was that if they pushed a girl down, the girl would get up and push them back, and that would be how they communicated that they were having a great time. But when a little boy pushes down a little girl, she cries and gets mad and goes and tells people. So you have to inform the little boys about what is happening in the real world so that they know how to behave and how to act. Okay. Boys think that other people see the action as communication. Okay, they just do. Now, if you've been watching your boys grow up, they get to a point where, you give your kids a kiss every night. So it might be on the lips, it might be on the cheek, it might be on the forehead. You give your kids a kiss every night, the boys and the girls. But there comes a point when the boys see you coming in to give them that goodnight kiss, and they turn away. They turn away. Does that mean they don't want to be loved anymore? No. It means they don't want to be kissed. So how do you communicate your affection for your boys when they get to that point? They like action. I would knock my boys into a wall gently, but I would do something physical. I'd give them a little punch on the shoulder. Sometimes I'd tackle them and we'd wrestle for a minute. They understood that communication as saying their dad loved them. Okay. Now they have to learn that that's not how girls think. So if guys are all action oriented, then what are girls like? Girls are more driven by their emotions. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that they're not in control of their emotions. It just means that they're more in touch with them, and that makes them more relation oriented in how they want to experience life. Let's talk about that for a minute. Okay. Because girls are more relation oriented, then that means that they begin to think about things like the relationships that they want to engage in as they're growing up and as they become adults. So along the way, girls are thinking, what kind of girlfriend do I want to be? What kind of wife do I want to be? What kind of parent do I want to be? What are the things that I need to learn? What are the things that I want to be able to do? All right. Guys are out tripping each other and knocking each other over and, being very physical about things because that's how they understand the world. But girls are learning how to relate. So that means that they have thought about these things before. Now, think about this for a minute in light of what we just talked about. Guys are very action-oriented. They're very physical. So guys, even when they get mad at each other and they fight, they get up, they dust themselves off, and they're okay. It's just, we were physical, we played sports or we pushed each other down and we're okay now. And so life is good. Girls, because they're more relationship oriented in their activities and in their experience, they're a little different. They don't have that way of physical communication. So there are other ways that they want to understand that everything is okay, that the world is okay, that they're okay. And that is part of why they begin to see themselves in these other roles as they progress through life. Okay. Now, so we talked about linear versus spatial. We talked about action versus relation. And now let's talk about how kids, little boys and little girls, role play, because they all do. They all, they see adults, they see bigger kids, they see other kids their own age at school, at childcare, with their cousins. They see stuff on TV, and they begin to role play out a lot of that experience and action And it's based on, okay, listen to this, how they see the world. So how do guys act out role playing? Okay, well, think about this. Guys like action movies, right? They like you do. What kind of movies do you like? Most of you guys like the Bourne movies, the Jason Bourne movies. You like the Mission Impossible movies, right? You liked all the Tom Clancy movies, all the things that are very physical, very action oriented, a lot of, spies, thrillers, guys jumping off of buildings, the James Bond kind of thing. That's what you like. That's what your boys like. They like the heroes in comic books, the X-Men, the Avengers. I don't have to name all those guys because you know who they are because that's what you watch. All right? That's what your boys like. That's who they role play as they are growing up. What do girls like? And I'm speaking in very general way. Girls like to play with Barbie dolls. They like baby dolls. And why is that? With a Barbie doll, what can you do? You have your Barbie dolls, you have questions and answers, and you play, dating and relationships. You get to be the boss in a relationship like that. You get to mimic adults. You role play what you've seen and what you've heard. Okay. With baby dolls, they begin to role play what they have seen other women doing. Because think about this for a minute. We mimic people that we see who we think are like us. So guys look at, little boys look at guys, little girls look at women for the most part, okay, very generally speaking. And that means that the little girls who have baby dolls, they are practicing parenting. They are practicing childcare. Boys have, I was like all the other guys in town. We had G.I. Joes, but we didn't practice childcare and parenting. We took the G.I. Joes out and we hit each other with them, and we threw sticks and pine cones. And, we were, even though we had an action figure, basically a male version of the Barbie doll, we were very physical with it. We didn't care if G.I. Joes got along, if they had a relationship, if they were friends or buddies. We were just going to fight. We were going to have lots of fun and do lots of action activities with it. Okay, so we've talked about linear versus spatial. We've talked about action versus relation oriented. And finally, we talked about the different kinds of role playing. As we've begun to talk about why it is that you don't know it all right? So in light of all that and understanding now a little bit about why it is that you don't know it all, then, what do you do? Okay. I want you to get a notebook handy. Here's my notebook. I've had this for 25 years. I have lots of other notebooks as well, but you need to get some way to begin to take some notes, because along the way, as a parent, you're going to hear things, read things, see things that you want to keep around to remind you about what it is that parenting is all about. Okay. Number one, do your homework. Do your homework. You're smart guys. And you know what? You've been learning all of your life. You have the scaffolding psychologically and mentally to learn new things. I've seen you guys. I've seen the stuff that you've posted on DMD, Facebook, and I know the kinds of things that you guys do. You're amazing. All right, so let's take the same approach to parenting. All right, you've got what it takes to learn, but what are some of the actual specific things that you need to do in order to learn about how to figure out how to be a really great parent now that you're in this position and you're not as prepared as you want to be? you have to approach it like you do other new topics. If you were going to build a house, you would learn a lot about building houses before you start. If you're going to rebuild a Mustang, an old Mustang from the 60s, you learn a lot about it before you started. If you're going to figure out how to have a beautiful yard, if you're going to learn how to hunt, if you're going to learn how to be a grill master, if you're going to learn how to do plumbing. I know the kinds of things you guys do and you're great at it. You got to learn the same way how to be a great parent. You've got to figure out what works and what doesn't. Okay. Here's something important that you need to understand and realize, and that is that all the dads married to doctors, not just the ones on the DMD Facebook page, but all the dads who are married to doctors, we all face the same challenge. Okay. We all face the same challenge. The most important thing is to start. Start somewhere, figure out what kind of resources you have available right now and take that first step. Okay. The things that are right away that you already are doing, I know what you guys are doing because I've been there myself. First of all, you talk to your wife, right? You figured out what she knows and what she can do to help you. You have family. You've got moms. You've got grandmothers. You've got sisters-in-law. You have females in the family who have raised children, who have parented and done the, fulfilled the traditional female roles. And you've got to learn how to do that. Okay. You have friends who are willing to help. And of course you have other support groups around you, neighborhood, church, whatever small groups you participate in. All right. So you've got to start somewhere. All right. So you've gotten your little notebook because Dave told you to get one. Okay. And one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to look for parenting books. All right. Parenting books. There's lots of stuff that you can find online, New Barnes and Noble. A lot of people who maybe just a little bit further along than you, they have books on their bookshelves that deal with parenting. They'll be more than happy to lend you something or share with you what they found rewarding and helpful. All right. Now, while you're doing this, while you're looking for books that are going to help you be a better parent, you've got to be discerning because not every book is going to be helpful to you, right? You are a unique person. Your family is unique. And especially because you're a guy who is married to a doctor, your situation is very unique. All right. So a lot of the things that you're going to find in parenting books are not going to work for you because a lot of you guys, you do everything at home. You do the yard, you do the cooking, you do the laundry, you do the house cleaning, and you do childcare, and you do the homeschooling during the pandemic. You do, all the carpooling. Okay. Some of you may not have to do all of that, but a lot of you are, that's the life, right? That's the life. And so you've got to find parenting books that give you a chance to understand how you can adapt the important things that you read in a book like that to the way that your life is. So, find what works for you. Don't be afraid to change or to challenge something or to, drop a book and go pick up something else if it just doesn't fit with the way that your life works. All right. Another thing that you guys need to start doing. I don't see enough of this on the DMD Facebook page. Find out what other guys are reading. There's a lot of advice given on the Facebook page, but one of the questions that doesn't get asked a lot is, hey, what are you guys reading about parenting? What is a good book that you can, suggest to everybody else? Because, hey, we're all in the same boat as far as being a dad married to a doctor. So there's a uniqueness about our common situation. What books are you reading? So we probably need to get that started just to let everybody kind of see what everybody else is up to, what they're reading, and get that information shared. Another book that I'm going to show you is called The Birth Order Book. The Birth Order Book. And it's written by a guy called Kevin Lehman. All right. The Birth Order Book was, I think Dr. Lehman originally put this together in the 80s. It's been updated. The latest publication was not too long ago. Very, very good book to help you understand, all right, why each of your kids has a lot of the characteristics that they do. So, for example, we all know that most firstborn kids are very, very driven. They like to please their parents. They like to follow the rules. They like to lead others. Most of our U.S. presidents have been firstborn kids. What about the lastborn, the babies? They have so much in common. The kids who are in the middle, they're not going to be like the firstborn. They may be the anti-firstborn. Some of you have experienced that. Okay. Why is that important? The Birth Order Book is one of those books that kind of transcends the situations, and it just helps you kind of know what to expect as you parent, because you have to figure out how to parent each kid. There's a lot of things that you can do for each kid that are the same, but then there's going to be a lot of stuff that is not the same. And it'll help you to be better prepared to understand and be okay with how things are different. Okay, here's another thing that you're going to have to learn to do. There's going to be a lot of parenting courses offered in your community. They might be through a PTA, they might be through your church or your community of faith. They might be in your neighborhood. It might just be something that a group of people get together and do. They work through a videotape or a video disc and workbook, because they just identify a need and they want to get started really learning how to be a better parent. So a lot of those courses will be free. The ones at your churches or your house of faith are generally going to be free. They'll offer lots of resources. They will also give you a chance to meet with lots of other parents who are about your age, who have kids the same ages as your kids. And it'll give you a chance to begin to learn, to begin to fill in that scaffold so that you can figure out how to get the job done. Now, again, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of the parenting courses, conferences that I went to, I had to pick and choose what was important and what fit my situation, okay? Because for the most part, a lot of the child rearing activities are still given to the wife to carry out, even if it's a two-income family. Most guys, because there's just, the guys are good at one thing, the girls are good at another thing. The girls have grown up wanting to do this. The guys have grown up wanting to be outside doing other kinds of things. So it's just kind of the way that you divided up roles. Most of us who are married to physicians know that our wives leave at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and that a lot of times they don't get home until 8 or 9 o'clock. And the weekends are for catching up, and the phone rings all day and all night on the weekends. It's just the life. But how do you become a good parent if you're a guy and this is the life that you live? Okay, so you read books, you go to conferences in your area, and you look online for parenting courses. There's a lot of good stuff out there for learning to be a good parent. And it's a lot of it is very basic, very fundamental stuff, and you have to flesh it out and figure out what pieces work for you. You do that because you try to, like I said, you work on your notebook. You think about the things that really resonate with you, and you keep notes on it. I mean, a lot of you guys, you keep notes on everything else. Keep notes on this, because it's going to help you to develop the plan that you need to really parent the way that you want to parent and be intentional about it. Okay. All right. The last thing I'm going to say about, using resources to learn to parent is technology. Right now during the pandemic, we are all online. And of course, when I'm on Facebook and I see Dads Married to Doctors posting stuff about the thing that happened today. Here's a picture of the rash on my kid. I've got a kid who's facing this kind of thing at school, and they're looking for advice. You can get online and get a lot of answers, but I'm just going to caution you: be careful about the sources. All right. So, just recognize that some things are emergencies. So if your child, you think that they've ingested a poison from underneath the sink, don't get on Google and spend 30 or 45 minutes trying to figure out stuff. Call 911. Okay. So use your brain. Use your brain. If you have the time, then begin to look up stuff. I have a 1-year-old grandson that had terrible eczema for over a year. It was not an emergency, but it was very frustrating. And, we spent lots of time online. I'm married to a doctor. We did a lot of research. Okay. But it took a long time to figure that out. That is different from, oh my gosh, my child is bleeding and looks like it's going to need some stitches. You don't need to get on Google to figure that out. You go to the ER. So the other thing that you're going to need to do, all right, and I think this is so important, is you need to tap into the medical community where you live. You need to find other people who are married to doctors, both male and female, to talk to them about how they are parenting, how they are dealing with child rearing issues in your community. And you'll learn so much. Plus, you'll begin to create a support group that understands your specific situation. I have lots of guy friends who have participated in parenting all through their kids' lives. But they always had a wife who was pretty much at home, especially available during the evenings and on weekends. So they didn't have to do it. They got to do pretty much what guys traditionally do in a 2-income family. So if you're talking to people like that, they're great friends. We love them to death. We have great time with them. But they had a hard time understanding what I was talking about when I said, I've done 1,000 loads of clothes this year, and it's very frustrating. So tap into the medical community where you live. All right, get to know the other spouses so that you can learn from them what they're doing to raise kids and be a great parent in a medical marriage. All right, let's move on to another topic. Okay, so the lesson for today is about you don't know it all. We talked about the differences between boys and girls, linear versus spatial, action versus relational, how they role play. And then we talked about how you need to do your homework, all right? About you have the scaffolding, you know how to learn things. So get a notebook and get serious about it. Look at books, go to courses, build relationships, use technology, and tap into the medical community where you live. All right, so here's one of the last things we're going to talk about today, and that is that it's okay to ask. Guys are notorious. They're notorious about not wanting anyone to know that they don't know something. And what was the first thing that I told you? You don't know it all. You don't know it all. Okay, these are your kids. These are your kids, and I'm seriously for 1 minute. You get one shot. You got to make sure that pretty much most, if not all, of the big choices that you make about parenting are the right ones. So it's okay to ask. If you're trying to figure out something complex and serious, and you've done your homework and you still haven't gotten there, it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask. Here's how you ask. Talk to people who have great kids, because those people have been great parents. Great kids come from great parents. A lot of you have kids that are in childcare or in daycare. There are some great kids there, and some not so great kids there. Find out who the parents are of the great kids, the ones who get along, who socialize, who are learning their social cues, who just, have a well-adjusted, happy attitude about life. And find those parents. And if you have a problem, ask them how they would deal with stuff like that. Same thing in your neighborhood. You are already doing this. You are looking around and seeing who the kids are in your neighborhood. And you're deciding who you're going to let your kids be with and who you're going to keep your kids away from. All right? That is making a judgment, and these are your kids. They're your responsibility, and it's okay to do that. You have to be careful, though. You don't want to cause a problem, get people too mad, alienate them, but you do that because these are your kids and you're responsible for them. In your faith community, there's going to be some great kids. You're going to talk to those parents when you need to ask somebody. Okay, here's the hard one. Inside your family, we all deal with this. We have, my wife and I we're each one of 5 kids. We have a mountain load of aunts and uncles. My kids have 30 cousins who live around here. And a lot of them have married. So family get-togethers are massive. If I'm going to ask somebody in my family about a parenting issue, I'm going to be really careful about it. I'm going to find somebody who will be private and quiet and confidential. And I'm not going to broadcast that I need some help when everybody's out there, because I'm going to get responses from people that I don't want responses from. So you have to be careful in a family. You have to be judicious. You have to be fair. And, you have to find a way to ask that doesn't create rifts in there. The last place that you're going to begin to look for parents to talk to about parenting is at school. Now, some of you are going to put your kids in private school. Some of you are going to put them in public school. And there will be some of you who homeschool. I get that. It's the same thing, though. You look for the great kids. And the parents of those kids are who you want to ask. Because as your kids grow, they are going to want to participate in activities that take them away from you and into other people's homes and into activities that are led by other adults. And you want to know if those adults are going to be leading in a way that falls in line with what you think about parenting. So, you have to learn about that. All right. Here's another thing that you're going to be doing as a young parent, especially. You're going to be talking to your parents. Okay? Some of your eyes just rolled, and I get that. But they're grandparents of your children, and they want to participate in their lives. And you may not use them for every little thing that goes on, but you ought to talk to them. Develop a line of communication. Give them a chance to see how you parent and how you don't parent. Because if there's a problem, you want to be able to say to your mom and dad, I prefer to parent this way. So if my kids are at your house, this is how I prefer that you deal with them. You may not always get the response that you want, but you have to be able to communicate that if there's an issue. Okay, so talking to your parents is a big deal. Now, one more thing, when I've talked to you, just right now about finding the parents of those great kids, I hope that I made it clear that you need to talk to both the moms and the dads, because you've already figured out that almost every home is different from yours. That as your kids grow up and they go into other people's homes, they are going to see moms who are not like their mom, which means also they're going to see dads that are not like their dad, and it will create questions. But going back to why you talk to parents of great kids, you're just trying to find out, what are the things that they're doing as parents that are, creating these wonderful kids that you've identified and that you want to kind of learn what's going on from. So talk to the moms and the dads, because a lot of the things that the moms do for their kids in a parenting context, you are going to be the one responsible for doing, and it's okay. The last thing we're going to talk about today is building a support group. Now, to me, a guy who is in the position that you guys are in, you're the main caregiver for your parent, for your children rather, and you're the primary parent. You are in a tremendous leadership position. Okay, there is nobody who will be a part of your child's life that will have a bigger impact on them than you and your wife. Let me say that again. Not a teacher, not a coach, not a grandparent, not a neighbor. There's nobody who will have a bigger impact on your child than you and your wife. The choices you make as parents are going to be the big influencers in how your kids grow up and how they turn out to be, if they'll be happy, if they'll be well adjusted, if they'll have issues, whatever the situation is. In order for you to do a good job in that leadership position, okay, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. A lot of you are going to be participating in Scott McCarthy's leadership course. And I think that's great, because one of the things that he tells you is that it's okay for you to take care of yourself first. If you're in an airplane and the oxygen mask drop down, they tell you, put your mask on first and then try to help the person sitting next to you. I try to think about it this way. You can't help anybody if you're a sinking ship. Take care of yourself. Then you can be the leader that you're supposed to be. You can build the support group that you're going to need to deal with all the parenting issues. A lot of parenting is fun. It's great. Your kids are wonderful, and especially, the relationships that you have with your kids. It's what you want. It's what you live for. But you don't do it in a vacuum. So your support group is going to be, first of all, it's going to be guys, because that's who we've grown up having guy friends, and we kind of understand it. We speak the same language. We communicate in a similar way. You're going to know guys in person, but you're going to also know guys online, because that's just the world that we live in. Especially if you're part of Dads Married to Doctors, you've discovered a unique community of support that you're not going to see anywhere else. The other thing I've already alluded to is you've got to tap into your medical community. A lot of you do not participate in organized medicine, and that's your choice. But I'm telling you that is a huge resource for each one of you who is trying to learn how to parent, and you're trying to figure out the landscape and how to navigate through things like sports, school, small group time, your house of faith, your neighborhood, all those things that are important for kids to feel like that they have a parent who understands the needs of kids in all these different contexts. You're going to have to learn all that. And other people who are part of the medical community are a great resource. Some of them will be guys who are staying at home dads, and a lot of them are going to be women who are married to male physicians, but they can be helpful too. Sometimes you're going to need to you're going to need to go and talk to somebody in a confidential way. Go to church. All right. There are people there who will listen to you and they won't share everything that you're telling them. And they can give you some good advice, even though they may not be able to relate to your specific situation married to a physician. They get it that you have a problem and you need somebody to talk to, and they can help direct you to some resources if you need that. I've already talked about your neighborhood and your families. Just be careful. You know, there are going to be some great adults in there that you're going to learn a lot from, but don't delegate your parenting to somebody else in the neighborhood or in your family because it's hard, because it's too tough. I think parenting is probably the hardest job a guy can do. It can also be the most rewarding if you do it right, if you do your homework, and if you realize you've got to be prepared and make some good choices about that. All right. We're going to wrap up here on this first session. The next topic in this 4-part series is entitled, You Are in Charge. You are in charge. And we're going to talk about a lot of those leadership and responsibility issues the next time. All right. You guys behave. Be a good dad. We'll talk to you later. Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye.